And we will call the City Council Tirz #1 Board to order. We have a couple of extra people up here. Dr. Rector is here, and uh, uh, Howard Taylor, I want to say the other way around. Dr. Rector is with HDBA, and Mr. Howard is with, Mr. Taylor is with Main Street. So the rest of our Tirz board is not here, so we have asked them to join us on the dais. So that's why they're up here. So at this time, I think Mr. Gamble will lead us in an invocation.
Thank you. Will you pray with me? Most gracious and precious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for an opportunity to come together to serve you and to serve those that you love. Lord, we ask that you guide our hearts, that you guide our minds, that you guide our discussions, that you keep us mindful, Lord, that everything we do in word or in deed, if not done to your glory, we do in vain. All these things we ask in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And I probably should also explain part of the reason that Main Street and HDBA are being represented. We have what's called the CDA, am I right?
Sorry, Downtown Advisory Committee.
DAC.
DAC.
There we go, DAC. And so that board is made up of the Tirz board and these two representatives. So that's the purpose of having them with us. We need to approve the minutes. I assume everyone has had a chance to look at them. They were emailed out, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a motion for minutes?
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're ready for a monthly report. And I believe that, I'm assuming, Mr. Paxton?
Nope.
There he is. All right, over here. All right, sir.
So good afternoon, everybody at the Tirz Board and Main Street Advisory Board. My name is Jacob Bogish, and I'm the Finance Compliance Coordinator here at the City of Kerrville. And today I'll be talking about the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone FY 2024 Year-End Financial Report. Come on. There we go. Okay, so jumping straight into things, we'll be looking at Tirz 1 FY 2024 activity at a glance. So you began the year with a fund balance of $327,985, and you collected $327,564 in property tax increment. So this is a little bit behind budget, but that's because there was a refund to a taxpayer after a settlement valuation lawsuit with KCAD. And then interest performed better than budget at $35,640, bringing your total revenues to $363,205. Moving on to expenses, you had the transfer out to general capital projects for the Kerrville 2050 Downtown Comprehensive Plan update in an amount of $50,000, bringing your total estimated ending fund balance to $641,190. Before I move on, are there any questions? I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. No questions?
Questions on that?
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Next, we'll kind of be looking over a financial summary of the Tirz zone since inception. So I kind of wanted to include this because it shows the growth of property tax increment since inception. So you can kind of see the growth from 2020 all the way to 2024, from 22,899 to 327,564. I also wanted to include the FY 2025 budget because I know we have some new faces here tonight. So property tax was budgeted at $339,470, and then interest revenue at $25,574. So your ending fund balance estimate for 2025 should be $1,006,233. moving on to your Tirz historical projects funded. So this kind of gives you an oversight, or an overview, sorry, of what the Tirz funded since inception. So you have the CDBG downtown revitalization for $52,500, the ADA accessibility at Clay and Water Street for $40,000, and then the comp plan for $50,000. So, at least in my opinion, I like to ride my bike. Both the first one and the second one have made that a lot better for downtown. I don't have to go from curb to curb, which is very difficult on a bike if y'all haven't done it before. You get overconfident and then you fall on your face. So, and that's it. Is there any other questions y'all got for me? Pretty short report.
Anybody have anything that they would like to ask or add, comments? Okay. It was, we voted this in 2019, the Tirz board?
Yes.
2018 was the base year.
2018 is the base year.
Okay, that's what we're moving from. So, so it's a nice round number
Yes.
during that time.
And then one thing I also wanted to mention that I forgot to mention is at this time, you don't have any current expenditures for 2025. Y'all have no projects that y'all have sought funding to.
Well, that's probably good and bad. So good that we've got it.
We had one during the year brought to us, but that's running through the process.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Comments?
Just
Yes.
had an observation. That looks like a really good return with interest. How do you manage that? I'd be interested. Yeah.
I'm going to let
Almost.
Trina get
It's
this
like
one.
over 9%, isn't it?
Hi, yes, sir. I'm Trina Rodriguez, and I'm Assistant Finance Director. So we kind of work on a pooled cash basis around here. Basically, all funds we put together, and we're able to invest a larger dollar amount. And we invest in short-term investments such as commercial paper, agencies, Fannie Mae, home-backed mortgages, and things of that nature. We have an investment, our finance administrator, she manages a lot of our investments, but we're constantly dabbling. We work with an outside investment firm who helps us find, the right investments at the right maturities and the right interest rates. This past 2 years, interest rates have grown exponentially, so that market is starting to drop, but we're plugging in as we can with, we are constantly monitoring cash flow and just to see what we have available, what's going to be maturing, what projects we have going out the door. But that's something we work on a regular.
Judy, I have a question.
Sure.
If I remember correctly, this is due to increase in valuation since 2018. That's where this revenue comes from.
Correct.
It's not the base tax, but it's an
Right.
increase in value.
Increase, yes.
Correct.
Okay.
It's
Thank you.
just the increased increment. That's why it's a
Yes.
tax incremental redevelopment zone. It's just the increment on top.
Good.
You're right.
And did you understand that?
I did.
You did.
I'd just like to know who their investment person is.
Oh, okay.
We have great city staff.
All right. All right, Jacob. What's
Thank you.
next?
And then Drew, I think you're next.
Sure, thank you.
I forgot I'm sorry, the Visitors and Citizens Forum. So why don't we go ahead, we'll do the presentation, and then if we have anyone who wishes to speak, we'll let you do it after that.
Presentation up, just one second.
Sorry, working through just a few technical difficulties this afternoon. ID 10T for me. I got it, yeah, I swear that my IT director is, you unplug your computer and plug it back in. That's the first 2 years of IT school, but she says it's not true.
If you want to go ahead and do visitors forum, let me get the
Oh,
PowerPoint.
okay,
I'll give you just a
okay,
minute.
we can do that. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to us? Speak now.
Let me just mention that the majority of people here are with Historic Downtown Business Alliance and are business owners. And they are here to learn about
Okay.
what is proposed for downtown. And many of them saw the previous October 23rd meeting, which is on YouTube, and viewed that this morning
Okay,
before they came, so they have some background on what we're doing today.
okay. Those of you with the HDBA, would you raise your hands? Let us, okay, good. All right, well, thank you guys for being here. All right, we'll just, we'll wait till our technical difficulties are worked out.
I'm here because I want to know what's going on with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Do you guys have a part of it? No?
No.
Not really, no.
Who takes care of that?
Well, they are kind of an entity by themselves,
Oh, really?
and they operate under their own umbrella.
Who gives
And-
them permission to do whatever they want?
They do.
I mean, I read a flyer calling me an ordinary street corner. And that's why I came to the meeting, because I thought this had to do with things like that. They started an art department. You know how mad I am
Yes,
still.
yes, I do, I do.
It wasn't right, and I caught 3 kids on top of that sculpture. 3 kids during the parade on top of it and going like this. And the father thought it was a jungle gym.
That is not what we are here for
Okay.
today. Julie, did you have something, or would just let her visit with you? Okay. Julie has said, see her and visit with her about it after the meeting.
I can
Okay.
give you some direction about who to talk to.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about the
Ready?
delay. As Jacob mentioned, the Tirz board did give $50,000 towards the Kerrville 2050 comprehensive plan update, specifically for the downtown small area plan. So Freese Nichols is wanting to get some feedback, and this is their presentation, wanted to get some feedback from the Tirz board, including the 2 liaisons from HDBA and Main Street Advisory Board, to kind of see what you guys see the future of downtown. So we'll go through some of that analysis. This will be included in the comprehensive plan update as a small area plan. And they'll come back in January with some preliminary ideas, and that'll be presented at the next Downtown Advisory Committee meeting and the public meeting on January 22nd. So we'll go through this exercise. It's more or less kind of a SWOT analysis, trying to figure out what our strengths and weaknesses are. So open dialogue with the board, and if you want to take any comments from the public, you're welcome to. We can incorporate that as well.
Right, there's no action items tonight.
No action
It's
items.
just conversation.
That's correct.
Okay.
So again, kind of gave you the project overview. What Freese and Nichols and their team is going to do is take that feedback and incorporate that into their downtown plan. Their team has looked at the 2018 comprehensive plan to kind of see where we were in 2018 and what action items have been completed since then. So the team consists of Freese and Nichols, TXP, which is a market and economics analysis group, and CDS has done a housing study for Kerrville as well as part of the overall update, not specific to downtown, but so there are 3 downtown advisory committee meetings scheduled. Again, they're going to do the analysis of the downtown chapter, downtown visioning, and then what public realm strategies are important to the community. connectivity, street types, infrastructure needs, opportunities for infill, redevelopment, and open spaces, and then possibly high-level branding and activation recommendations for the downtown area. And part of that final document will include some action items similar to the current 2050 plan. We'll update that and create new action items for implementation moving forward. Here's the overall project scope. Right now, we're in that October to March range where we're really looking at downtown specifically. They're looking at the second public engagement meeting will be in January. The third comprehensive plan meeting will come in January. And then they're working on updates to the specific chapters of the comprehensive plan. So the Downtown Advisory Committee is kind of the steering committee for the downtown plan. I'd be working with city staff and the consultant team to provide that guidance and input, generate the overall vision, and provide feedback of the best ways to engage in the community. To be directly involved in the determination process of the proposed recommendations. So again, at your next meeting, you'll have those proposals presented. Obviously, you need to be champions of downtown, like I think everybody here in the room today. Of course, attend the 3 meetings that we have, the community events if possible, and then allow any fellow residents to engage with you guys to help collect more community feedback. Because again, the comprehensive plan is really the community's plan. All of that feedback is important so that that document is really driven by the citizens. So prior work that's been done, of course, we do have a Main Street. We do have a historic preservation. We've done the 2050 comprehensive plan in 2018. Building codes and fire codes have been updated in recent years. That does include the existing building code, which is a significant portion for downtown, as most of the buildings are in place. Not a lot of redevelopment going on. Of course, the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone in this board. And then zoning and development standards have been updated since 2018 to kind of capture what that downtown vision was in 2018, trying to make sure that we're consistent with those directions from the community. So the reason we do the comprehensive plan, again, is what are we working towards? What are our goals as a community? This document is a guiding document for city council and staff on what steps and projects we work on next. What are we looking to achieve with this plan? And are there any peer benchmark cities or places that we need to look to for specific ideas and how we can implement those into Kerrville? So now getting into more of the dialogue piece, for downtown specifically, what are our greatest and most unique strengths? What does Kerrville do best downtown?
Would you want
Yep.
input?
Yeah, now it's y'all's turn to.
All right, well, we'll start with someone who's been around the longest with our downtown, so.
Well, it follows one of the 2050 plan guidelines from 2018. It maintains our small town charm. It is the most historic area within our community, and it attracts people because of the attractiveness of the buildings, attractiveness of the stores, attractiveness of the restaurants and bars that are downtown. I think those are our real strengths that we attract people to downtown. And as we've often said, a healthy downtown is a sign of a healthy community. And so it's important to maintain that health.
Bill, what's your definition of downtown in Kerrville?
We need to really look at that because they talked about in the last meeting, there is a fairly large area that is the Tirz area. But there needs to be a core downtown.
Is it the Downtown Arts and Cultural Zoning District?
I think
Is that the boundary?
I think they could be identical. I believe that they would start at Clay Street and move east to Washington Street, move from Water Street certainly to the courthouse, but I believe it also should be extended up Earl Garrett Street, all the way to Peterson plot, to the Peterson home up there. What was the street, Linda,
I would probably go
DeBoer.
at least to
Yeah.
Tybee Street on the east.
on the east? Okay. You know, we want this to be a walking area, an area that can be strolled. And so when you go too far away from the downtown core, it becomes difficult to walk it. We were trying to do this with our historical walking maps. And we found that when you included Notre Dame, when you included Tybee Hotel, when you included those, it was difficult for people to ambulate to those.
I walked from my office today.
Yeah.
To this meeting.
Yeah. And there are people that ride bicycles.
Right, so it's smaller than the downtown alternate cultural district, because that includes HEB and out to McFarland and Quinlan
Yep.
and such. So you're thinking a smaller area, more.
Yeah, I think
compact.
Howard had an area he was proposing for a grant.
And I'm
that,
sorry, you started a certain
No, no, no,
direction.
that's
so
okay,
I-
that's okay.
And-
Do you have handy?
I do. I don't have the zoning map, but give me just 1 second and I'll pull up the study area that Freese and Nichols is looking at specifically, as part of the downtown plan.
Mhm.
There we go.
There it is.
So when we were contracting with Freese and Nichols, we wanted to identify actually a larger area to focus on so that we could certainly capture the needs of the community, knowing that we may tailor that down to a much smaller boundary for what we're going to call downtown. We used the existing Tirz boundary just because a lot of those downtown are familiar with that boundary. They associate with downtown at least, even though they may not be directly downtown. We do have, and Bruce, to your point, the Downtown Arts and Culture Zoning District is probably this large, but shifts a little further to the northwest. Like you said, captures HEB down to Notre Dame, up Sidney Baker, of course, to the river. This area, obviously, as you can see, goes down to just a little bit past G Street for the Tirz boundary. So we knew we had a lot of dialogue coming through the process. I'm going to say really from Tybee down to G Street as a separate area. But we didn't want to open up the Downtown Arts and Culture District for the study area. But that's why we looked at the Tirz boundary as the first example.
Well, and I asked the question because I wonder when Bill and folks and myself, when we say downtown, what are we actually talking about?
This is actually a question that Main Street is working with.
Sorry to interrupt, but I will tell you, people in Kerrville do not know there's a downtown. They come up to me and I work 7 days a week. I'm open 6. And people come in and tell me, oh my God, I didn't know you're here. And I'd ask them, well, how long have you lived here? And they'll say 20 years, 8 years. And then I'll go, well, we've been here 25. Open up your eyes. We need to get together as a group. That's why I'm here.
Good.
And do some kind of informing the people here in Kerrville that they need to come out and go shop.
That's what
And
we're
go
working
see
towards, yes.
And know that we're there. How can you not see my windows? And I'm 20,000 square feet. What's wrong?
If we can, let's go ahead and continue our conversation. Drew, if you would, kind of give us, I don't know that everybody can read it, but what the longer street on the north there, if you'll give us those
So
boundaries.
northwest, we're half block north of Francisco Lemos. That north corner is going to be the city yard, which is McFarland on that south side of the yard. Sidney Baker is kind of that spike coming up northeast. And then again, following Broadway and Water Street down to G Street on the south end.
Actually, the Spike's Earl Garrett.
Oh, yes, thank you. Excuse me. Earl Garrett.
Okay.
That's the church. Earl Garrett, yes, excuse me. The audience can, that doesn't work on the screen. Never mind.
Yes, it is.
When I think of historic downtown, I certainly do
Don't
not,
think of
in
all of
my
that.
mind's eye, I know
would think probably others envision it, it's not particularly historic, a good portion of that. It's been kind of taken away, you know, there's other buildings, et cetera. So,
And to that point, again, with the, talking with the consultants for the study area, we actually wanted to go a little beyond that historic boundary so that we are capturing those that associate with downtown, that may be downtown adjacent. So this is kind of the study area. It's not defining what downtown will be.
Right.
This is largely just an idea of businesses that, sit next to the historic area that are not necessarily in the historic area.
That is correct.
It's just the largest scope
Yes,
to find where there may be other spots or opportunities, right?
exactly.
well, and it's part of the Tirz, so it receives those funds like we would. It's all of this
But this
receives
is
those
just
funds.
an analysis right now. This is not really.
Correct. Yeah,
The only
we're,
money being spent here is like where we could go forward on some other areas. So
Got it.
what is, can you point out then what is the historical district itself, not the analysis, but what is that area?
I believe, and Dr. Rector, correct me, I believe the County Historic Commission has a boundary designated, but there is not a,
But it doesn't include
City.
HEB, but it does include like county courthouse and.
Right.
And all the Water Street buildings up to, just across from Sid Baker.
Right.
Right? And all the way down to what, G Street?
I'm not actually sure where the historic boundary would go. Again, that's not currently defined.
So we have three maps that overlay. We have the historic downtown, the central business district, and Tirz.
Right. And then,
So there's interlocking pieces of all three.
Sure.
Yes, the CBD doesn't really get a lot of attention, but
I'd like to comment a little bit on the boundaries. And you're right, I think they're overlapping, and that's not unusual. I've seen that in many communities, and they don't all jive together, you know, so. We are, through the Main Street Committee, making application to the Texas Commission on the Arts for a cultural district designation. Doesn't mean we'll get it, but we're applying, and they require boundaries. And I've been driving around and looking and also trying to, and this is going to be a recommendation I make to our board and even for comment here, because I will not be the one who determines the boundaries of it, but based on what the commission looks for, they'd like it to be fairly focused and condensed into a central area that is the primary business area of downtown. And indeed, this map that we have is very extensive, and I don't have much problem with that, but I do think that defining that core cultural area is a challenge. And so I drove around and I looked as carefully as I can, and keep in mind I'm new to this community, but I looked for where I saw all the primary cultural assets. There are many others, but I'm talking about the primary ones that include things like the Kello Center, the Art Center, the new History Center that's broken ground now. And so what I was suggesting is that we look at the riverside or the south side of Water Street to Tivy Street, the east side of that, to Jefferson.
Okay.
North side of Jefferson to Quinlan, west side of Quinlan. And there would be a little jog in that to take in the History Center, but that would include everything, the library, the new History Center, the theater downtown, et cetera. And that's about what they're looking for, the core area. It's where all the shops are, and you know, I don't think and it even takes in a couple of the churches, because they also, some of them are very active arts venues. And so that's the thought, but that has not been approved or reviewed yet by the committee or by the city, for that matter.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I was
No.
kind of asking a side question on what the committee thinks downtown is, but we're on greatest and most unique strengths. So I apologize.
no apology needed. This is some give and take, and actually it's a good basic question. So, anything else?
No,
Well,
I
okay.
think this discussion helps Main Street as we're
Good.
wrestling with this question.
Next.
what do I think one of the strengths are? The infrastructure downtown is good. It wasn't 20 years ago, but a lot has happened in the last 20 years to improve the infrastructure downtown. I think with the parking garage there, you have adequate parking so that you're not necessarily trying to park on the street and impede progress. And of course, I mean, the river. And so I think that's a strength, but then there's also opportunities. How do you access it better, especially for pedestrians? Because that's the only way you're going to get people to use it as part of downtown, is if you're able to access it on foot.
Okay, good comments. Next.
Greatest strengths is that this, I think, is the city has begun, as Fred alluded to invest in downtown and actually pay attention. When I first came here in 2007, the HDBA existed. I don't think Main Street existed at that time. And it was very disorganized, and the city didn't really pay attention. You, Bill, have been working on it as with other business owners downtown for all that time, I know, and longer. But the city didn't really engage, I think, until about 10 years ago. And I think that's actually one of our strengths, and that the city wants to see that. And of course, I think that's why we're all here. So, opportunities for growth, which is, we'll come back to that, won't we? You'll bring us there.
Let's
Sorry.
do that. Okay.
I don't have too much to add. I think off of Bruce's point, I think that, you know, the idea that we're looking to continue to beautify and expand, and grow our downtown areas, you know, it's appealing to me. I'm a frequent user. My wife and I, you know, I have business lunches there, nightlife. The connectedness of all of it is kind of related to access, but that's a big deal for me because I use the trail a lot. So the ramp behind the library that was just completed with the murals on it, I think that projects like that can continue to kind of create this fluidity between all of those downtown assets, I think, and the amenity. That's my thought on it. I think that's a really big strength.
Well, I look at a community, try to perceive the uniqueness of the place. And I think that most communities desire some sense of uniqueness of who they are. And as I've looked at Kerrville in my brief time here, my first observation about downtown is it's pretty doggone vibrant compared to many, many other communities. Many of which have a unique problem in large buildings that are unoccupied. And frankly, when I look at downtown, I don't see very many spaces that are available for some of the kinds of things that we'd like to have increased activity down there. In the 2050 plan, there's a great deal of desire that's omnipresent through the whole document about making or keeping Kerrville green. I don't know if that's the exact phrasing, and that's an interesting challenge when you create an urban environment. How do you keep it green? And I think the current discussion about saving historic trees is a kind of indication of that thinking. And I think that our downtown is just very walkable. I think the idea of the pedestrian connection is absolutely vital. I mean, and this leads more to some of the negatives that I think we'll talk about in a minute, but I think that right now, as I observe downtown Kerrville, the size of the place, the intimacy of it, and then I'm going to tell you, you've got one of the most peculiar downtown main streets I've ever seen in my life, and I love it. I mean, I don't know very many cities that have a historic house right smack in the middle of the shopping district, and a major art center next to it, and then other shops and businesses. I mean, it's a very unique mix. And then the other final observation I would say is that it's obvious to me that the thinking about this community is nothing new. I really applaud the people who have been here for so many years and have invested in all the beautiful things that are part of this community. And it's apparent when you go downtown. I think the lighting, I think the proximity to the river is a major asset, but it's also an obstacle too. And I think that this town has made such great strides in engaging the river that making that connectivity is probably going to be one of the greatest opportunities, I think, for the future.
Okay, well, let's go to, anything you want to add to this?
No,
Drew?
I think those are great. Again, that input's gonna help build out the scenarios that, the consultant team's gonna bring back. I think we could probably combine opportunities for growth and unique trends to be leveraged at the same time. It's kind of, to me, it's a similar question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but.
I think so too. Well, we'll start at this end.
Oh, where are we now? Negatives?
Oh,
No.
no.
Opportunities for
Opportunities.
growth
Opportunities, oh, certainly.
And
or
unique
new
needs.
trends to be leveraged.
You know, sometimes you have to use your imagination when you're looking for uniqueness. And one of the things that I've seen in other parts of the world, not just here, is more and more emphasis on things that are made within a community, handmade goods. You would think that those things are disappearing. They're not, just exactly the opposite. And even communities like Detroit, that, you know, has suffered greatly from economic decline, are beginning to capture the skills and traditions of that community. San Angelo, where I moved from. So, you know, I think of Avery, the jeweler, and so forth, that one of the opportunities that might be for downtown that separates it completely from other communities is more maker opportunities. I think there's a jeweler that's moving downtown now that's going to be making products as well as selling them there. And the other thing is that thus far, and I don't think there's been any prohibition, but we have no chain or, what am I trying to say, franchise type businesses or restaurants, and I think it would be really nice to keep it that way because I think that's what makes it unique. I don't think we need a McDonald's in the middle of the main drag. And it's not a negative about that business, but it takes away from the character of the place very much so. And so I think that's another thing that's unique is that right now I cannot think of a chain or a franchise business right there in that area that is very loosely defined as our downtown area.
Okay,
You know, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Andrew.
Yes, that's fine.
I apologize.
It's okay. The connectedness of the river. I like the way you articulated that. That's kind of my vision. That's kind of like why one of the main reasons I'm so excited to be on this board is because I don't really know that I have the details filled out of that, but growing that connection or whatever that looks like, I think is kind of where my head's at. And you know, I think just it. You know, I can't have this conversation without thinking about marketing, because one of the things that comes to mind is some of the stuff I've seen recently where there's been private businesses that have come and set up shop in Kerrville to offer unique experiences to people that live here that we otherwise wouldn't be able to like access. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is that glow in the dark paddleboard thing. I don't know if y'all saw that, but that was someone that came in and set up shop, and if we didn't have the river and it wasn't positioned the way that it was, I don't know that they would have came and tried to do that, that we would have demand for that. So just trying to leverage that and get the message out to people that might not know what we have here. So that's all my comments I got for that.
Okay, Bruce?
I think that we lost something almost 20 years ago in that we lost the largest employer in Kerr County from downtown when the hospital moved. And we've never replaced those folks. And I'm not talking about jobs, I'm talking about daily residents. And we have a huge workforce housing issue in Kerrville, and that has been growing all that time. And those folks are the people that, you know, work in the restaurants and the shops, and you know, we don't need to find the nurses and all that, the hospital's working on their housing issues, but downtown needs residents. And losing the hundreds of people that we lost that were just daytime residents because they were employees here at the hospital, but we've never replaced them. And when we look at downtown, there is plenty of opportunity for infill and redevelopment and vacant land where if the city would look at it like they're looking at the large apartment complexes or the single family home projects, to bring a housing that the servers and the retail folks and you know, the maybe even teachers, that's a low end salary thing, that we could have those folks here, and that would make us much more vibrant, because we don't have the residents. People have to come to downtown. Nobody lives here anymore, and we lost that large employer, so we don't have that large group of people that come in every day, at least 5 days a week. And with the hospital, it's not 5 days a week, it's 7 days a week.
Interesting thought. Okay. Fred?
Let's hear from him.
So I want to carry on with what you were speaking about. So there's a large community here of people that are in recovery and things like this, and a lot of them have to go other places to find work. You know, you're talking about having more of like that daytime residential down here, which is people who work downtown and being able to access the shops and everything like that. I'm going to tell you that
No,
probably.
I'm really talking about people who would live here and sleep
I
overnight.
understand that, but
Okay.
you had also said, though, the hospital being here, that when it was
It
downtown.
used to be
you
daytime
had- You had a
residents.
downtown flow of business happening, right? We're losing a lot of our servers and people of that, you know, in that kind of job to places like Fredericksburg and stuff, because it's not available here. You know,
What's not available?
The jobs are not available here downtown. I mean, there's just not as many potentials for restaurants and things like that, because I don't know, it just feels very vacant down here. I know I work here, I'm a hairstylist downtown, and I didn't really know what all was happening in this town until I finally got downtown and was working. And I kind of, along that same idea though, that you were saying about residents, but you know, we're losing a lot of our people that would do these jobs, you know, to other cities because there's more potential. I don't know what the answer is. It's just whenever you started speaking on the daily residential idea, it kind of popped in my head, and I just wanted to mention that, so.
Okay.
Well, the chicken folks looking for jobs. Club Charles is always looking to hire.
Really?
Yes. I mean, we are always short servers, we're always short hostesses. I mean, it is a revolving door, and those that want to work, we've got lots of opportunity. Christmas and the holidays are our busiest time. We do tons of catering, special events. Would love to, if you want to share that information. We always have availability. Cooks, dishwashers, servers, bartenders. Lots of opportunity.
Thank you. All right, anything else? Okay, Fred, go ahead.
Well, just in line with what Bruce was saying, because when I look at growth, we're not looking to grow downtown, we're looking to grow the activity of downtown. So you're right, so when the hospital was here, there were people going out to lunch. And people, I mean, you know, people going to breakfast, people going to dinner and not having to go 2 miles to go. And so, you know, how do you increase the activity downtown? And in some extent, you come to a chicken and egg. And it's just like when they're trying to build out on the loop. The idea was to get the rooftops there first, and if you got the rooftops there, then all the auxiliary services, the dry cleaners, the convenience stores, they would come because that's where the people were.
You're exactly right,
Yeah,
because
so-
in development, residential always precedes
Yeah.
commercial.
And so what, other than increasing a downtown footprint for residents, are you going to do to bring activity downtown during the day? Because if a business is only going to be open from 5 o'clock in the evening until 10 or 11, they're not going to make it. So how are you going to get those businesses traffic in the daytime? You can get them traffic in the daytime if people have a reason to be downtown in the daytime.
Can I run with that for a second?
For a quarter.
Do you have that survey you showed in the last meeting that the people commented about when they came downtown? What
Yes.
day of the week, what
Yeah, I mean,
time of the day? Is that
I've got that
something
next, or
can
you want
draw
me
up?
to skip to that or finish?
Yeah, no, let's look at it.
So part of the community survey that was done this summer, how often do you go to downtown? As you can see, the majority there was a few times a week. When you go downtown, when are you usually there? Weekdays during the day is the primary answer. What should be the priorities for downtown? More events and festivals, more entertainment and nightlife, improved traffic flow and parking were the three that kind of took the top.
Looks like number 4 is historic preservation. Yeah.
I can get back to it. There you go.
Whereabouts? Yep. So that's pretty essential as well then.
Yep, historic preservation and enhanced parks and public spaces right there with it. So then kind of the word cloud that consultants used, community, quaint, dining, river, events, shopping, downtown, and historic were kind of the primary words that came out of those more or less fill in the blank answers.
Thank you.
Okay.
How many people took that survey?
Not enough. 427.
Yes.
Is it possible to open that back up?
Yeah, I had
Because
no
I
clue.
think
I think that's a good
most-
idea. I think it's
most
something
people-
we need to
most
do.
people I talked to, and I know it was on the website and I know it was, but most people missed it. And I think that as these conversations are growing and people are finding out more about it, I think having that survey back up would be beneficial to its results.
And maybe other ways to get that survey out than,
Yes.
than.
Yeah,
than we
didn't they
have.
say,
Think-
sorry.
I think it was also a problem that it was done during the summer. There are a lot of people traveling during the summer. I was out of town all summer. I didn't have a chance to take the survey. How many people downtown took the survey?
How many people downtown knew about it?
I didn't know about it.
So I think that's a good idea.
I think so too.
to reopen.
We'll talk with the team and see if that's a possibility to reopen that. Again, that was a lot of the preliminary input that got us to this point. So we don't want the team going back, starting over, delaying the project, but we'll
But
we'll
we may
certainly
be
talk
able
them
to expand those questions and
Correct.
do that type of
and
thing.
tailor that down.
So,
May I make just a suggestion? Also, why not send it out to the actual business owners? You know, there's all these group lists everywhere of the MSAB and the HDBA.
Yeah, I don't understand about why there's so many committees for
Well,
downtown.
no, I'm not asking that question. What I'm asking is maybe we try to include, one of my concerns is the business owners. And I just feel like whenever I'm going to the meetings for like the HDBA, which I've been going to for a while now, there seems to not be a communication
Absolutely.
passageway happening on any level. And with respect to all the different committees, I understand that's kind of frustrating too. But we do have emails. You know, we do have, Bill's able to send to us information on an email in a group. And I'm sure there's ways we have those available elsewhere as well.
Yeah, those that are stakeholders, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Those that are stakeholders downtown, for whatever reason, and I'm in PR and marketing, I never knew about this. And I mean, maybe, I don't know, social media opportunity, but I mean, I hate that you've done this much work, but maybe we could work on what was determined as far as what your firm has concluded at this point, and then resend the information back out and say, do you agree with this? Is this a valid grassroots look at what people are thinking?
I think in our world of communicating and marketing, we can come up with some additional and better ideas. So we can work on that, Drew. Yes.
Like I said, I'll talk with Freese and Nichols and see if,
Okay.
Just to represent the stakeholders.
so again, the next steps for the process, Freese and Nichols team will be here January 22nd for another downtown meeting, comprehensive plan advisory committee meeting, and public engagement meeting.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you for that date.
But you know, so that we don't lose this, I think what I'm hearing, Drew, is that has to be shouted from the rooftops over and over and over again, so that on January 23rd, somebody didn't say, "Oh, really? I didn't hear about that."
Yeah, I did.
So we have to figure out a way. I mean,
And I wish
we
it
do
wasn't only
these
one
things to
person,
get
it's
input.
30, it's
Right.
And so if we're doing these things to get input, then we need to find a way to maximize that input.
Right, and we certainly try. We put it in the water bill through the summer.
Who pays the water
I
bill?
never wa, I mean, I pay automatically.
So, put in the water bill, we did social media posts, radio spots, newspaper notifications. So,
Well, and maybe we need a door-to-door downtown with
Well,
some
and
of
just
these
for
things.
for context, if I remember right, last time they said, Freese and Nichols said that 400 number, if that's the number I'm thinking of, was actually pretty far right of the bell curve for
Yes.
our population,
it is.
which was actually really surprising for me, like to me. I thought 400 people, that sounded like nothing. But they said, nope, it's actually way above average for
Usually
response.
in-
To try it again and see what kind of response.
So within
I think
that,
that's a great
you
idea.
usually get a pretty representative sample of what your community is looking for in that. I understand you're talking about the downtown owners as a portion of that, but what your community is asking for in your downtown as opposed to what the owners want. So part of it is to get the input from the folks in our community as to what you want. I will say that if we have to do a door-to-door example of this, we'll just need to take the $1 million that Tirz has and put that into funding, literally walking to someone's door and saying, hey, please take this survey. So we have gone through.
Lovely if the owners had those surveys and they could hand them out to their patrons. Then you'd get a really great representation of why those people even, go to that business in the first place. You'd get a
100%.
direct, interested group,
Sure.
not just the business owners.
Sorry, I didn't mean to stand up and get a little frustrated, but we have amongst this as something to shout to the rooftops. We have to shout about drought restrictions. We have to shout about all the things. They can't all be the most important. And so I understand the frustrations about not having it, but there are certainly 800 things that all have to be the most important all the time.
But if the HDBA, a private organization, wanted to reach out to their membership and do that, there's nothing stopping Bill from doing that.
No, and the internet's a thing. You can access it anywhere.
And our businesses, QR code that goes directly to a survey.
Yep, I've got one at the end of the presentation for that.
Okay,
There you
good.
go.
Good.
That's
Good.
already done.
All right. Bill, did you, yes,
Hello, I'm a Shriner student, and I believe that we should reach out to Shriner students because they live here and they want something to do. They want something like a hangout space in town, which is what we've been looking for. And it would be a great opportunity in order to get young people at Shriner to visit the downtown area, to get out of the campus. So I think we should definitely reach out there.
okay, thank you.
Good to know.
Thank you. Good to know.
Can I ask you a question? Have you been to Divines?
Divides, yes.
Yes.
And we actually heard that at our last, another separate stakeholder group with Shriner. Shriner admin was talking exactly about that, is how do they get their students engaged more in the community? So it's good to hear from both sides, so.
Okay, Bill, anything from you and HDBA?
Well, yes, and on opportunities, there really are a lot. And one of the things that really excites me about Freese and Nichols is that they've got, at the end of their work, an action plan. And so we're not just gonna get all these things thrown into a bucket. We're actually going to say, how do we accomplish these things? And housing, I agree wholeheartedly with Bruce that housing is very important. And we don't have people who live downtown, many who live downtown, and stroll out of their house and go to shops and go to restaurants. And the people I'm looking at probably being best downtown are maybe not the servers, but would be people who would like to retire and live in a downtown area and who have money to shop in the stores and eat in the restaurants. Those, I think I've identified 4 different properties in downtown that could be developed for housing. Parking. We need convenient parking downtown. We need to look at the parking lot east of Earl Garrett Street for parking. That is really an opportunity that we really need to work on. Incubator areas, we need an incubator place for downtown. We've got people who want to set up store downtown but cannot find a place to put it. That's a good problem, but it's also a problem for a new business that wants to move into the downtown area. I had a vacancy in one of my buildings that wasn't even announced, and I had 3 people show up that wanted to rent it. You know, we fortunately have a competitive environment for renting downtown to businesses and shops and restaurants. That's a good problem. Sidewalks. We've got a great opportunity for sidewalks. They need to be widened. They need to have trees planted. They need to become more attractive. And that's going to help people stroll in our downtown area. So there are things that can be done, opportunities, and I think they're realistic opportunities. That's all I have.
Thank you.
So Bruce, I want to know, pie in the sky, as you talk about, we've lost the hospital.
25 years ago, I remember being right in the center of town, and it was everyday traffic and influx of people going to lunch, et cetera. So, and Dr. Rector, you alluded to 4 different vacant properties. So what is your pie in the sky? If you could have your wish, would it be like a high-rise somewhere? Would it be, what are you thinking?
It wouldn't fit the character of Kerrville if we did a
Right.
high-rise.
So what are you thinking?
You know, even the Guadalupe condominiums are only 6 stories.
Right.
And that would feel very tall in downtown Kerrville.
Right.
You know, now we did used to have the Bluebonnet, which is way beyond, right, my experience or knowing. And that was 8 stories, okay. And so there is precedent for that, so that could be, I think it would be something that would be smaller, maybe 3 or 4 stories tall, if it was
So apartment housing is what you're thinking. That would be
well,
the perfect
but there's
remedy.
also infill lots though that could be done. You know, there's like the hotel space that's never developed, right? There's a space there that could be residential, and that's actually a more compatible use with the church that's directly across the street and such, and would provide walking. It's on the river, on the other side of Shriner One.
Yes.
Spring
Okay,
Street.
sorry.
Spring Street, the Spring
Yes.
Street site, that's a site that could be like that. The Entertain Mart site, that's underdeveloped for what it is and could be, and I mean, it would be you'd have to do something with that building, and we have to remember, private parties own these properties, just like private party owns Peterson Plaza, and we can't tell people what to do, but there are opportunities. And if the city would look at, possibly doing incentives like they've done for Bluewood or for Lennar or for other places that would focus on downtown, that may help. And you may be right about what the makeup of those residents needs to be, and it's probably a mix of affordable and some nicer stuff, because the place on the river, you're not going to put affordable housing on the river, but maybe the Entertain Mart side is something that's more that workforce housing, or maybe it's some of the old warehouses off of McFarland and near Quinlan and Clay. You know, the old Haskell Fine property, because you mentioned specific properties. That would be a great workforce housing site, and that's walkable to HEB. A lot of jobs in town, the river, the parks, the events, Arcadia, and so there are tremendous opportunities like that.
And I see that too. I was just
Okay.
wondering what
All
your
right.
little
I
gerbil
thought you
was
were-
running in your head thinking.
A few years back, I think Bruce and I, a couple of times, have been through this shoot about doing the I Wish This Was effort, which was to show empty properties and let people from the community fill in what they wish that was in their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a ton of feedback, a tremendous amount of engagement from the community about when they saw an empty storefront, I wish this was a bakery, I wish this was this or that. And it pointed us some very interesting directions. I know it was very valuable for the commercial real estate side, certainly for Bruce's career, but, and a few others that wanted to see it. But one of the things I wanted to bring up is product blend. And as I talk to folks about Kerrville and being a lifer is, well, what's Kerrville's story? Fredericksburg's story is German and wine. Comfort story is free thinkers and reemergent. Kerrville's, like our downtown product blend, is sometimes a bit hard to describe. And so I would say that one of the things, an opportunity, is to start really thinking about how the product blend, is it solo owner operators of, you know, those goods that Mr. Taylor talked about that we make here. I mean, I grew up in a family making things in Kerrville for 50 years. And we've done fairly well at it. But what is the brand story? What is the story of downtown Kerrville? If you had to tell somebody in an elevator, if you want to say why to go to Fredericksburg or why to go to the Riverwalk, you can tell that story. But I think sometimes our individual properties don't really help. Like, who's the product for, I guess is the question. Through our effort with the DowntownKerrville.com project, we've created itineraries for a night out, or for retail, or for outdoors. And so thinking in terms of the user, not just what we want to put in it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that would be, I think, an opportunity is just to think about what the overall product blend lends our pitch to.
I forgot about that, Clint, thank you.
So we need an elevator speech. We need a little, what, 60 second, this is what makes Kerrville special and unique. And
I think one
Come
thing.
Kerrville, we have no rector. I mean, that's, that works for me.
Same.
Yeah, I think when you talk, the word entrepreneurialism comes to mind. We have had multiple people who have developed from nothing into businesses. And all of the people sitting in this room have taken a building, they have remodeled it, they have built it and put a business into it, hoping that it survives. Many of those did, like H-E-B. Like the Morris Jewelry. And there are a lot of individuals who have taken a chance in Kerrville. We were a community of entrepreneurs.
Well, and to that point, when we did our research with the downtown with HDBA some 9 years ago, the brand thread that ran through when Dave Vineyard and I, when he was still here, went through sort of this recasting of downtown and Kerrville's brand, was that we're the home of the lone wolf entrepreneur. From Charles Schreiner to James Avery, through our generations, we have been the place where people came here of their own grit and made amazing things happen. That's not Fredericksburg's story per se. That's not any other town story. We're very unique in our entrepreneurial DNA. And so I completely agree with what you're saying about entrepreneurship, specifically downtown, from shingles to goat, or to mohair. The downtown is not there without the lone wolf entrepreneur.
Good thoughts, good thoughts. I know we've got all of HDBA and some of you have spoken. Do any of you have anything that you would like to add?
I mean, I think we have a great 2050 plan, but I'd like to know what we're gonna do in 2025, like short term, to get the businesses from going out of business and having vacancies. You're gonna face vacancies if we don't increase traffic downtown, period. So 2050 is great, but 2025 is paramount to get to 2050. So I would like to know what we're gonna do in the short term.
Okay. Anyone else?
Going back to Schreiner University, I just want to add and bring a comment to the surface about Carrie Crop breeding packs, because I believe when we first moved here, you could park 20 spaces were available on Earl Garrett Street before PAX opened. Once PAX opened, Schreiner University showed up in mass, hung out with their computers, worked on their lessons, business people showed up. So that was kind of the glue to start making downtown really as functional as it is today. I really feel like that has a lot to do with how the beginnings of downtown, at least in the last 10 years, really began to blossom again. So.
Andrew, do you want to?
Oh, no, I was just, I asked you if you had gone to Divines, because I went there for a thing with a few, like, community friends Monday night, and I've never seen so many young people in Kerrville in my life. And I know it was Monday Night Football, but I was seriously like, what is this? This is awesome.
There are a lot of stores though in downtown Kerrville that aren't gonna Shriner students aren't going to be able to shop at our stores.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stores downtown that don't lend themselves to college students. So while Divines might be a great example of it, I don't think it's a good example for the rest of the stores, because my store specifically, I don't cater to college students. They can't afford to buy things at my store necessarily.
Sure.
So,
But it was just, you know, because I've been here over a decade, it was just, I've never seen that in my 11 years of being here.
While
So it
we're
was just
talking
an
about,
uptick in traffic.
while we're talking about Shriner students, L'Oreal, Perez, stand up for just a second. L'Oreal is a student at Shriner in marketing, and she has volunteered to help downtown with marketing
The
businesses downtown.
HCBA,
Awesome.
I'm sorry?
HCBA,
Yes.
okay.
Help
Very
HDBA. And her mother is here also, Mrs. Perez. And they have been both so impressed with Kerrville that they are going to move here once L'Oreal graduates and invest in downtown.
Awesome.
Oh, wonderful.
Welcome.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Any clues to what that might be? Are you gonna open the business?
We have been here an hour. We've had a really, really good discussion.
I've got a few more to go.
Do we want to, is it important that we get through
Yes.
all of them?
Yeah,
All right.
that way the consultant
help
team
them.
has
Okay.
as much information to work on before January.
Okay.
So
Can you guys hang with us? All right.
go through weaknesses and threats, what kind of barriers exist in Kerrville, specifically to downtown, what threats might impact success, and are there any issues retaining younger residents? I know some of this we covered, but anything new?
Okay, we'll start down here at the end with Howard.
Oh, goodness.
Go ahead and maybe kind of put those all together in your answer.
Well, every
Thoughts?
place I've ever lived hasn't been that many. I just came from San Angelo, where I was for 38 years, but I lived in Philadelphia and Columbia, South Carolina. But every place I've ever lived, I've heard the same thing. How do we keep younger people in our community? They move away. I think that's a hard thing to change. The real thing is, how do you attract younger people? I think people who grow up in a community just have a natural tendency to migrate. Not always, unless they have strong anchors to the community where they live. And I think Shriner is an incredible asset to this community. It's a very small but distinctive university. And I don't see anything downtown that celebrates Shriner. And I think there should be more of a symbiotic connection there. I think that, and maybe that would lead to more participation by students, and also maybe more access to the talent that's at the university. And I think every community I know that really engages the university benefits enormously. So I think that's one of our great assets. In terms of issues, a major issue currently is parking. And that's a unique challenge, because part of that is artificial. We won't get into why that's true, but it is. And I think that already it's been alluded to, opportunities that may exist east of Earl Garrett Street. I have trouble saying that. But I think we really have to explore ways to create easier parking access, because if we're going to make a pedestrian-friendly environment, we have to get people here, and we have to do it in a way that's discreet. And it's probably among the two biggest issues that any community faces is what's the reason for being, and then how do you deal with the automobile in the modern world? It just seems to
And
drive
I'm
everything.
baffled, Howard, because
Yeah.
there's 427.
In a parking garage, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a, well, yeah, well, no.
Like, what does it lead to?
So it's dark, it's too far away. I have to cross Sidney Baker, which is a nightmare at that intersection, which is actually in this 2050 thing talking about that very intersection. Honestly, I think you're taking your life in your hands when you cross that intersection.
There's
It's
a sky bridge.
people don't know about it.
Right.
I mean, it's in this report, but I don't.
People don't know about it?
No, I didn't know about it until I read this report today, this
Well,
morning.
it just fascinates me that
I've seen
there
it. I
are
thought
people
it was
like
Now, you're the one
Fredericksburg
who
that will
said
walk
you
for
didn't know
miles.
about the surveys, right?
Sir?
Well, think of all the people who don't know about the parking garage.
Hey, I lived
It's
there for a
a-
whole
it- you know,
year,
it's a-
and I
it's
didn't
an
know the parking
information
garage
thing.
wasn't, I didn't know it was a public parking
No,
garage. I thought it
there-
belonged to the city. And so
There's a
I
very
never parked
intense discussion with the Main Street Committee about how to address that. And there's some unique outside forces that are affecting what may be possible. But the obvious first thing is people have to be aware that it exists. Second thing is they have to feel safe, and parking garages are inherently scary places. I mean, just turn on anything on TV and there's always a murder going on in a parking garage. But that's a great garage, and it has that wonderful sky bridge. And you're right about crossing that street. That's a major issue too, and I don't even know how you can think about addressing that at the moment. I will tell you this, that state highway departments scare me to death. I've seen them destroy a lot of communities, and that intersection is becoming busier and busier. One thing we don't think about Kerrville is the nexus of the hill country. I think we've made some claims to be in the center of the hill country or something like that, but to our immediate north is Fredericksburg. To our south is Bandera. To our west is
Junction.
Junction and all the, the resort places there. And to our east is Bernie and Comfort, etc. And that crossroads is becoming so busy, it's beyond belief. I mean, I've literally seen, what do you call it, when, the intersections back up and you can't get through an intersection. It doesn't happen often, but it does. When we're talking about weaknesses, I think that parking and the automobile in general, dealing with it is a major issue. And I think that in the modern world, you can't not. Another thing I think is, I hesitate to say anything negative, but I think that courthouse and the way the grounds have been treated and developed, it's been more a matter of contingency, and it's ugly as can be. And it's mentioned in the plan, so I'm not the only one who feels that way. When I read that in the plan, I thought, thank God, I'm not the only one that sees that is an eyesore to our community. It's not a real pretty building. It's an Art Deco building. Not the greatest architecture I've ever seen, but not a bad building either. But the way it's configured, the landscape, and the way it's used around it, it can be done much better. It can be. That's a big issue too.
Looks pretty good with the Christmas lights.
The lights are beautiful, yes. Why don't we just leave them up all year? That would be a beginning. And I've got another list, but I want to stop there.
Okay. Okay.
I
Andrew?
don't have anything to add.
Okay.
No.
Bruce?
I'll pick up a couple of things. One, TxDOT came to the city last year and offered us a significant grant to improve pedestrian access at Highway 16, Sidney Baker, right here near the bridge. And there was a significant group that came to city council and harassed the council and got that taken out. And so the state offered us money, the citizens showed up, a small group of them, and it went away. So that's one of the reasons that's not getting improved.
What were their concerns? Do you recall?
We can talk about that at a different time. You can watch it on the deal, but I'm glad to talk to you. The second thing, the courthouse. The county's been wanting to fix up the courthouse. There's interior spaces that need to be done. There is a landscape plan and security plan at the courthouse. That was on the ballot most recently and was turned down. And so the citizens didn't want that. So weaknesses, physical, economic, regulatory. I love the river, and we've never embraced it as much as I'd like, but it also is a physical boundary for us. Especially because we're on the high bank side, we're on the cliff side, which is frankly safest for flooding and stuff, but it makes it harder to engage in the river. And that's a physical barrier that we never have really overcome. The city council has spent considerable resources looking at how to make that connection better. It's hugely expensive. It was in the millions of dollars to create a better connection there. And the ramp is a good second idea that works better than anything else. Threats, I'm concerned about stuff outside of Kerrville, macroeconomic things mostly. Kerrville itself, we have such a great community, and it's proved by you folks who have just come here this evening. For this is actually a little thing. This isn't even city council or something. And we've got this great group, and Kerrville's like that. We have this great community. And so while there are macroeconomic effects that could be bad for us, I think that our community is going to rise above it just like they have through, COVID and such. And so I'm really optimistic. That may be a threat, but I think we have the strength to get beyond that, so.
Fred?
Well, I don't have much to say. I think our biggest threat to downtown is if we don't listen to what is being proposed by Freeze and Nichols and what is being proposed by this community. If we don't look at an action on those items, I think that's our biggest threat.
Well, but we did such a good job with the 2050 plan of starting to do that action plan. I think the city and staff want to do that. If we get them a good revision to the 2050 plan that does affect things more short-term and all those things. I mean, we've already gone through hundreds of action items in the 2050 plan, and now we're revising that so that we can continue that process.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, that was part of the reason, I know we've got some new Tirz board members. That was part of the reason the Tirz board agreed to help fund the comprehensive plan update for a downtown plan, so that with your budget, you'd actually have some actionable items that may fall under your purview. So trying to get specific action items that both the Tirz board can look at, but then city council and the community as a whole. All right, I'll try to run through some of these next ones pretty quick. I feel like we've answered this, but what does success look like to you for downtown? I know we've had a lot of comments both from the board and the public here. Is there anything else that has not been said?
Anybody
Well,
have?
I just think having to wait to get a seat in a restaurant in the middle of the day would be proof of success.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I have been downtown always in the evening, but probably 5 times in the last week. And I feel like the luckiest guy in the world because I parked right in front of wherever I needed to be.
At lunch?
No, in the evening.
In the evening.
Yeah, no, in the evenings.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't happen.
Right.
So success for me would be that didn't happen. I'd have to be one of the people in the audience complaining that there's no parking.
Okay.
Because if there is parking, then we're not doing something right.
That's good.
There is a very easy way to measure success, and Clint has the key to it. Several years ago, he took an event, an arts and crafts festival attendance, and he took the cell phone data from it, and he could tell exactly who was here, where they came from, how many miles they traveled, what time of the day they were here, and everything but how much money they spent.
He didn't know who they were. He knew where they came from and how much time they spent.
Yes. And it can be done.
Happy to do it again.
Okay. All right, next.
Real quick, again, we did part of the comprehensive plan update as a housing study. CDS has finished their analysis and going through final draft on that study. That should be published sooner than later. There are some questions that they're looking at specifically to downtown, but again, that was really a citywide housing study. So let's see. Yep, you were spot on, Bruce. 427 responses on that survey. We'll talk with Freese and Nichols about a follow-up survey if that fits within the scope.
Was that the QR code?
I don't know that one works. I've got one at the end.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I think it is, but we had
Okay.
one
All right.
for the survey. We have a separate one for the project website. The project website does have an interactive mapping component that is still open. So you can go in and drop your pin, make your comments. That remains open. I think I checked this week, 67 responses on that.
There's some interesting comments on it.
There are. Went through these. Yes, and you can also thumbs up, thumbs down each of the comments that are put on. So from that survey, these are the results, or some of the preliminary results that Freese and Nichols pulled. Strengths for Kerrville, historic architecture, local business, walkability, for downtown. Serves as a community entertainment hub. Priorities for entertainment, nightlife, events and festivals, improve traffic and parking, and kind of update that public realm. Restrooms, historic preservation, pedestrian comfort, parks and spaces, improvements, a wider variety of business, transportation infrastructure and improving accessibility, parking, bike, and pedestrian infrastructure, activities, special events, day-to-day activities, bars and nightlife, live music, cultural festivals, and family-friendly venues. Again, so that was the results of the survey this summer for downtown portion.
How often are these results or the updated and given to, like, information given publicly?
So this survey was specific for the comprehensive plan update. City typically does an update every 5 to 10 years to the comprehensive plan. We do have some other community surveys that we do more frequently than that. But different surveys for different projects and different input. This is the framework of the 2018 downtown plan, branding and character. We talked about that today again. Downtown venues and gathering spaces, investment and reinvestment, market opportunities, reinvestment challenges and truths, land use, and relation to the zoning ordinance. Some of those, again, have been, I won't say tackled, but we have worked on some of those since 2018. Obviously, we've not done all of those. There's still action items to be completed. Next few slides are the guiding principles in the 2018 plan. So what I'm looking for from the board on this, reading the guiding principles, if there's anything that we still need to keep, or is there anything we need to add? And if any edits that we need to make, we can certainly work through, probably at the next meeting, future guiding principles if we need to add to it. But just kind of a review of the existing ones. So the first guiding principle is to create a living room for the community and a front door for visitors. Full service destination that attracts anchor uses and increased residential and mixed use development. So a couple of the action items in the existing plan are develop a downtown urban design and streetscape plan, support new anchors downtown, install information kiosks and wayfinding with historical information. I know HDBA has worked with, and Main Street have both worked on some historical wayfinding and marking and possible tours of buildings, so that one's kind of been at least approached. Is there anything on the guiding principle itself that you guys think needs editing?
I think one of the problems that we've discussed at Main Street is that doing this information kiosk and wayfinding is that we ran into a brick wall in that we had no funding to do that, to actually erect the base for the kiosk and so forth. And we're still struggling with that.
And I know one of the other things, one of the Main Street board meetings I was at, and I'll kind of point back to our summer survey as well. What technology do we hit and what's going to hit most people is always a challenge with ever-changing technology. So,
Drew, under anchors, what would the anchors be exactly?
Thinking back to 2018, I think some of the discussion, at least then, was possibly a convention center, hotel, or major retailer. I think heard some comments today that major nationwide retailer is not what we want for downtown. Right. And like I said, I don't know if that was the specific one, but the biggest one that comes to mind from 2018 was a convention center. Council did have a feasibility study done, but obviously we have not landed or pursued a convention center at this time.
I think our biggest anchor right now would be a hotel.
A boutique hotel would be fabulous.
Make a comment. I think everything under this guiding principle is excellent. There's nothing wrong with it. But I still feel a lack of something that I don't really see in the plan. This could be any city USA. Everybody aspires to exactly this. I would like to see us talk a little bit more about uniqueness of place. This gentleman here talked about that a lot, and I sense it through this entire group. What is Kerrville? And, every community struggles with that, but that kind of sense of they're there. What is it that makes us unique? And I kind of wish it were worded, you know, living room for the community, that's great. But what about,
I'm gonna interrupt you real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah,
'cause I
sorry.
think you're reading ahead.
yeah.
We've got 8 guiding principles to go through.
Oh, yeah, no, I think this one is like, though, the.
And the next one is exactly what you're
Is it?
talking about.
Okay, sorry. You know, I read this.
Sorry to
but-
interrupt, but
I read it, but maybe I didn't
Yeah.
read it close.
Foster a downtown that tells the community's history, story, and lore by preserving and enhancing historic features and a sense of place, celebrating and connecting downtown to the river, and developing a brand and unified identity for downtown. Certainly a laudable goal. I guess I probably should back up. The guiding principles in the current plan are some pretty high, 30,000-foot view concepts. Under those guiding principles are some specific topics, and under each of those topics are specific action items. So these are pretty high level overarching ideas, to where the action items that we'll work through in a later process will fall under one of those categories. But
Right, this is something we really need to work on kind of between now and the next meeting, because there really is, when you start getting into the 2018 to think about how we're revising it, you gotta look at the details and stuff.
yeah, and so Freese and Nichols wanted to go through these just to see if there was anything glaring that's not present anymore, or anything that's missing and we want to add. And you're absolutely right. Once we get down to the detailed action items, they may kind of morph into something different anyway. We all agree with this guiding principle as a goal for downtown? Okay. Number 3 is maintain and support small businesses with a local identity.
Woo-hoo.
Did I hit the crowd today? Anything you'd like to add to that one?
Well, I think this is where the problem maybe lies, if you're talking about an advocacy group that's in partnership of the city and the downtown property owners and tenants. And that's where this communication issue has arisen. Because it astounds me that we wouldn't know about this. You know, I mean, like, I know that you did your due diligence, and I respect that.
Right, no,
I do think that, we've got all these email groups, for heaven's sakes, send them out to everybody. But pass the QR code out at some meeting or whatever. I mean, forgive me, I don't think it's a difficult thing. It's something that just has to be focused upon and done.
Yeah.
And that would be where, boy, I'd like to see some improvement.
Well, and I think we've got 3 groups represented here
I think so
that
too.
can do a lot with
They do.
advocacy. We've got Main Street and we've got HDBA. I mean, you guys need to help with that as much as, the city. So
Absolutely.
I think it needs to be a combination of all of us just working better together with that.
I do. And in fact, I would be delighted to volunteer to take everyone's email and put it in one group so that we always have that
Reply
source,
all.
that platform to just send out information, not commentary. I mean, we don't need that. Just dates of events. There's a survey. Simple, straightforward, bullets, done.
Yeah, we'll make
I'd be happy to do it.
that, and I'll make note of that. Obviously, this is being recorded, so make note of that and make that as an action item, as some way to get these groups together more than once a year.
Well, and I would say, maybe Bill and with HCBA, you guys can start that right away. You could do something that could be used within HDBA
Yes.
at least.
Yep.
So, and possibly Main Street at the same time. So, good.
Number 4 is encourage and program downtown public events and create more gathering spaces that promote and enhance downtown as an arts and culture and music center. I know since 2018, obviously Arcadia's opened. There's some interest right now in some different downtown events. One of the farmers market has moved downtown. So I know we've made some moves in this direction, but for the guiding principle, is there anything else you need to add?
Please forgive me, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be the
What?
person talking. I know that the historic downtown business owners have attempted to have the street shut down and to have events on the street. And the regulatory process has gotten so much more arduous. I mean, last year it was the one-day insurance, then it was we need the porta potties, et cetera, that it became a financial burden that the organization couldn't do it. And the city didn't seem particularly interested in assisting in that process. I'm making an opinion statement there, not I'm not being rude. And so, you know, it's how do we, again, work together to have that process happen? That I believe that downtown business owners would love to do these things. And they've attempted to it without being able to because of the regulatory process.
I don't think that would change the guiding principle, but it's something that it's an action item that needs to be expanded on.
Lovely, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Number 5, promote a walkable, usable, uniform, and pedestrian-oriented public space linking downtown to the surrounding neighborhoods through streetscape elements, access, connections, and crossings. To Bruce's point, the city does actively look for grants to the state, since most of our major roads are state highways, eligible for some of those transportation alternative grants, primarily sidewalks, bike lanes, and so on. Where we have an opportunity to capitalize on those, we certainly try to. The one that's south of the river near the hospital district is one that we were awarded 2 years ago and finally taken off on construction soon. So I say that to say the city does look at some of these as opportunities, especially working with the state and federal side. Government does move slowly. But is there anything on the guiding principle we would like to add to that?
I think it reflects what we've said today.
Yep. And of course, the other one had river connections included in that. I think it falls under this as well. Number 6, promote preservation and reinvestment in single-family and historic components in the areas around and near downtown. Heads nodding, that's good.
I think it's
Okay.
okay.
Encourage reinvestment in downtown businesses by identifying and addressing regulatory hurdles, providing incentives to attract development consistent with the community's vision. The first action item on the 2018 plan was create a tax increment reinvestment zone.
May not need to leave that one on.
Now, I think we can check that one off. So, anything else we need to add to that one? Another one that we have looked at is updated the existing building code. We adopted the 2018 existing building code, trying to make sure that those existing buildings have some expectation of what's existing versus what you can do for remodels within those thresholds of the building code. It's a challenge no matter what we look at, but we try to work through that as well.
Just a question about the higher city staff. Does that imply a development function within the city that would be discreetly for that purpose?
It could. I've seen it done a couple different ways in different cities. One city hired a third party, termed it a master developer, and kind of worked as trying to sell that city's downtown, bring in investment, bring in projects, as well as work directly with the city to facilitate some of those projects, update infrastructure, and so on. Other cities have just a city staff person. At one point, Kerrville did have a staff Main Street coordinator that was full-time position. Over the years, that
I guess the reason I asked the
changed.
question is the opportunities are significant, but the energy and time that goes into accessing those opportunities, when someone is fragmented and doing this and doing that within government, it's impossible to really focus. And so I'm just wondering if that's a thought that this should be targeted towards a development office.
Good thought.
You know, one of the things that really is encouraging about the 2018 plan is that they supported the Main Street program, that it was an emphasis program for downtown. And I think we need to reiterate that in this segment of the plan. We need to have full support of the city for the Main Street program. That would include also hiring a Main Street director, so that there is a person who interdigitates with these businesses, that hears their problems, hears their concerns, and is there to help them, be a resource. And as Howard said, that that person may be half-time, but only has one job, and that job is to build downtown.
Okay, and the last one?
Some grants require that you have a downtown staff person. I mean, one of the ones that we're looking at now,
To apply for it,
It
we're gonna
does,
be able
yeah.
to say we have one, so.
Right.
It is real important, I put it on that guiding principle.
A lot of the hires are from outside our community also. A lot of these people who come in to do the surveys and things like that, and we have a lot of people who know a lot of stuff right here. And maybe we could hire more locally for these positions.
The profit is never recognized at home.
Okay, number 8?
Encourage reinvestment in downtown in the form of vertical mixed-use development, including residential uses. Talked about that a little bit as well.
Any changes to that guiding principle?
I think the only
Not
thing
yet.
we said was like 4-story vertical, not 20-story vertical.
I think the hospital used to be about 9 stories.
Yeah, it was 8 or 9. 8's probably, anyway. We get into fire issues too.
So one of the existing action items is offer incentives for downtown housing and business development. It's one of the things that staff have talked with the Tirz board, as well as city council. Main Street Board has some different grant opportunities as a Main Street board. Tirz board obviously has their funding, limited on spending because it is government money. But there are opportunities within, specifically within Tirz, for some grants or incentives for existing businesses or renovation or reinvestment in property. Main Street through the Texas Historic Commission has a whole gambit of grants, and they all have their specific parameters and strings that come attached with that. And then, of course, city council can oversee a lot of those different, the spending of that money, because it is government money at that point. There's definitely a lot of different opportunities and ideas out there. Just trying to find what fits Kerrville.
I think one of the things that we recognize from a staff standpoint is that downtown's hard. It's expensive. It's more expensive than everywhere else because it's old historic buildings and they're not easy to refurbish. And there's a pause in maybe pulling the trigger on doing some of those renovations because there's, it's where it's $15,000 somewhere else, it's $25,000 because there's a bunch of extra stuff in downtown that has to do with that. So, Kerrville previously had facade improvement grants that I think nobody really availed themselves to. But that's kind of a successful program where, if it's a matching grant where the business would, put in reluctant to paint because what's the point? And if there's a way that Tirz dollars or ESE dollars could potentially help, make that difference. Just make it a little easier to refurbish your sign or, paint your outside, all exterior stuff, really public facing things, but.
Update sidewalk space.
That we haven't really had a lot of success discussing that so far, but that'd be an interesting option because the Tirz board is that a good portion of the Tirz dollars is set aside for economic development grants.
One jewel right under our nose that we hadn't really talked about or thought about is the Shriner One Center. We could put retail on the first floor of that. We could put condominiums on the other floors.
Government bought it.
It solves it gives you more retail space. It has downtown living.
It does. It's owned by the government.
I was going to say this.
They bought it after the Tirz was created, and
Hey,
it
you're
took,
part
it
of the
took that
government.
money right off the
Government can be
rolls.
bought, right?
It can be bought, and we've got a realtor right here at the table.
MHDD is not going to move.
It's a beautiful, listen, it's a beautiful space that's got riverfront property, and I would argue that government building is not the best and highest use there. But, it's hard, they're in a building already, and.
Michael, I think Michael was
Didn't
first
send
point
them to
because
swap.
one of the questions about, when you talk about the world of incentives is, we want more to come here, more to come here. We're gonna incentivize them to come here.
And a lot of us that have been downtown for years look around and go, okay, but what about us? And I think that having things like even the small token that was made, and I know Dr. Director had a big hand in this, putting together the sign, with signage, where you can get money from Main Street or from the city to improve your signage, so that it's easier to see what's available on. I mean, that meant a lot to downtown business owners to have a $200, we'll help you with your sign. And so those they're almost micro incentives, sub $1,000 to take activity that we want to see. It's not just floating money to a chain that wants to come here or going for a tax abatement controversy. I think that helps balance out the look that we're trying to do to raise up our locals while we're trying to attract, more drivers. But those little things don't seem like much, but they are very meaningful to a small business.
Thank you.
Excellent point.
Again, this is kind of our preliminary scope area. We talked about that earlier on. As we dial in the specifics of the plan, I do suspect that boundary will be defined, not just the Tirz boundary that we started from as we were working with our consultants. Obviously, as they're listening through this, they'll look at some of the boundaries that were suggested. I imagine that'll probably be one of the topics of the next meeting is, did we dial it into the right spot for a downtown plan? Or do we need to keep a larger footprint just for some of those adjacent action items? So, and then last, there's your QR code.
There it is.
That is the project website, so that talks about the comprehensive plan. You can look at all of the other presentations that have been given thus far. You can sign up for an email list on that page. And then, of course, we'll get that from the consultant as we get closer to January 22nd and send an email blast to anyone that has signed up. I know I've added a few names to that list late summer. But again, thank you guys for coming. Zeichner, thank you for jumping in as chair. You were appointed as chair by council last night. So she showed up today and said, what do I do?
Good question. Everything that happened today, will it somehow be manifested in that?
Yes, so what we've done is on this webpage, the presentation will be on that webpage. We're putting links to these meetings. I mean, these meetings are posted on the city's YouTube channel, but on the page specifically, we're putting those links in there. The previous presentations are there. Once the housing study is finalized, it'll be posted up there. So we're trying to keep that as kind of the center for all of the documents as we go through the process until the comp plan's adopted, probably May or June by city council. Announcements of future meetings go on that page. So flag that one, bookmark it, check back. Say that again?
On the city website, it's under development services, right?
I think so. We
It
just,
had its own banner.
it
but
did, and we got a new
today.
website Monday, so I've got to go
Yeah.
find it. So I don't know where it is today.
I looked for
Is it possible to send a link like to Main Street and to maybe Bill, and then they can get
Yes,
that out to
and
their
it's-
people?
We kept it easy. It's
Okay,
kerrville2050.com.
Okay,
But we will send a link out
okay,
to
that might make
the
it
city
easier for
boards.
some of them.
And then Dr. Rector, if you'll pass it on to HDBA, to y'all's list. Again, you can sign up on that list, and that'll be a separate list for citywide for all comp plan things for the next several months.
And what I would add, go ahead, Clint.
No, I'll let you go.
You go first.
Okay, I just wanted to thank all of you for being up there. For those that have been up there in different capacities, and also to staff for taking the time. The torches, the pitchforks, the arrows. We're an interesting group of Muppets in this town, but we're all gonna get there. So I
We're all
appreciate
gonna
the
get there.
positivity. Thank you.
Well, and what I would ask all of you store owners, we appreciate you. And if it wasn't for what you do, we wouldn't have what we do have downtown. But I would ask you to let your neighbors know. Let the other store people know. Now, we'll try to help in other ways to get the word out, but it's going to be best coming from you and letting your neighbors know. They can go online, they can see all of this. And then I would ask, and I'm sure you will, both HDBA and Main Street, take these guiding principles, take those action items, and discuss those in your groups. Now, the guiding principles will probably stay the same because we've said yes, right?
Right.
But those action items are the things for us going forward and how we narrow those down, take out. So I would ask that you guys make those talked about and get their input and just let your other store owners know when there's a meeting, you need to be there. Yes,
I'm assuming that someone from the Chamber of Commerce is aware of this meeting.
yes, they would have been, yes.
So are they here? They're not here.
They
right?
are not here. They are not
That,
here.
that's where we should start.
Okay. I also want to thank Delane Sigerman. She is Councilwoman Place One, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And unless somebody has something monumental.
And the president of Main Street is here.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. So.
Can I point out that Delane gives away gift baskets at the parking garage every once in a while?
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, I don't know why people don't park there more. I mean, I have been doing a marketing for the last 3 months where I've been giving something away on the 3rd floor, so you have to come to the 3rd floor, get your goodie bag or your raffle ticket and use the skywalk, take the elevator
There's where
down,
the
don't
Skybridge
use the
is.
crosswalk. Go ahead and walk through Shriners Buildings or however you want to get to the other Water Street retail spaces, because I don't like that corner either, personally. And I have had more people come in and say they had no idea it was free, no idea it was there. Now, it has a sign on it that says free parking.
Well, I didn't know about the skywalk. I thought that was a private entity's
No.
passageway. I mean, just because I don't use the parking garage because I think it's too dark and
Right.
I don't like the corner and you know, the other reasons that come about.
So I'm really trying to get the word out. I mean, the first time we did it in October, we had goodies from whoever wanted to donate to this bag to go shop. You know, so the whole point was to, and then we were gonna have one this Saturday where we had gift wrap. Go shop, come back, we'll wrap your gift, but you have to come to the 3rd floor. And it's silly, but you know, it got me talking about it through the week leading up to it, to people who didn't know about the parking garage. So if nothing else, they heard my spiel.
But you're not doing the gift wrap this weekend?
No, because
No,
I'm
we
going to
haven't
the Beast
changed.
Across America. Yeah.
No.
Well,
Can't do it all.
signage for the parking garage has been talked about. We haven't gotten there, but, so it needs to be an action item.
If y'all will hang a sign like you do for the triathlon, all those events that you put across the street, if you hung one from underneath that sky bridge or a block or so before you get to it, saying free parking, 400 yards ahead of an arrow.
Every meeting, we talk about the parking garage and how we can improve it, and how
We
we can
have
tell
talked
people
about
it's
hanging
there.
something. That's a very
And we
good
talked about
idea.
that last meeting, like a nice sign.
So we're looking at changes we can make to where the free parking signs are up. We did talk to TxDOT about hanging stuff on the barrier, and early indications are no. But I never
In the
give up.
window.
That's all right.
Yeah,
That's all
there's
right.
the window.
In the window?
Keep asking.
We will keep asking,
So-
right, yeah.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Thanks for the good discussion. Tirz Board and our other 2 guests here, thank you for your good input. Appreciate it. Everybody have a Merry Christmas. And if you have not seen the courthouse lights at night, go see them.
Yeah, I work for.
Oh, and we will adjourn the meeting at 4:52. I don't think you're.
452.
4:52.
Let's get that right.
I don't know.
The green was still
Yeah, so
on,
we,
thank you,
I have a
Jacob.
business partner. We're a team. We work out of a joint book. We met while we were both working for Wells Fargo. Left, right.
Were you taking notes?
And now we've been, 5 years.